Hello, Star Citizens, and welcome to day 2 of IAE. And today is all about Aegis Dynamics, one of our favorite manufacturers. Now, if you were looking to get an Idris or a Javelin, I'm sorry, but you know how that is. It's F5 Wars or nothing. So if you didn't play the F5 Wars, you might have another chance tonight. I think at midnight. I'm not 100% sure, but we're going to look at it and see if they have anything in the event schedule that shows us where they might be doing it again. But yeah, them's the breaks. The F5 wars are always hard, but there are some interesting things I've been hearing, so we'll get to that. As always, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, because if you subscribe and you like or dislike a video and you leave a comment on the videos, you qualify to win our Star Lancer TAC this month. And then next month, we're giving away something real nice, real nice. So you definitely want to be subscribed. And if you are already subscribed, consider hitting that join button, because then you have a 25% chance of winning all of this stuff that we talk about. But yeah, let's just jump into this one, because I want to make sure that we fully go through everything, and I don't want this video to be too long. But first, we're going to look at this event schedule. So if I look at this event schedule, you see they give you the days, but they don't give you the times when ships will be going on sale exactly. So that's my only thing about this, is it says which days, right? But it doesn't say, oh, this ship will be going on sale at this time. Now, from my experience, the ships, as soon as the ship sale starts, that's when you can get the limited ships. So 11 a.m. Eastern time is when the ships start for me. So you have to convert that to whatever your time is. That's what I would assume 11 o'clock p.m. or 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time for me. So you have to convert that, UTC or whatever, wherever your time zone is. So that's the first part. 11 a.m., be ready, have multiple devices, and, make sure your time is right, and you should be able to get any ship that is limited, hull limited, okay? But it's like, it's the F5 wars. You got to be the first to refresh, first to get it in your cart, first to pay, hit that pay button. It's much easier if you're paying cash. It's much more difficult if you're trying to pay with credits. But there's plenty of guides out there, so go and check and see if you can figure something out, because you got to find what works for you, because what works for me might not work for you. All right, let's get into Aegis Dynamics. So first thing, this Eclipse deal, which is $25 if I'm not mistaken. So it's a $25 war bond. So I think the savings are $25 here. It's a pretty good one. I think that's 67% or something like that. So $25 CCUs, or $25 upgrades, as we're supposed to say. $25 upgrades are pretty good. $30 are great. 35 plus is excellent. So this is a pretty good one. I would say this is one to pick up. And what I always say is you can always just get it, see if it fits in with your upgrades or CCUs. And if you don't need it, then you can end up just melting it later. But I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. All right, let's go through these ships. So the Avenger series, pretty much any one of these you want to get is great, but I think the Avenger Titan is the one to get. I think it's the most valuable as far as the weapons it has, as far as its utility. Yeah, if you watch my Info Runners episode where we were talking about the Crusader Intrepid, you know how I feel about this thing. By the way, go watch that. The Avenger Stalker, I think, is it's a good ship just because the Avenger is good, but I don't think I wouldn't spend the money on this at this stage. What I would do is I would save up my money. I would go with the Hawk. Other than that, I would probably go with the Cutlass Blue and just skip this all together. So I just feel like the Stalker, it's a good ship, so I'm not upset if anybody buys it. I don't have a whole lot of notes for you. I just think the Titan is just so good that it just makes all of its variants, including the Titan Renegade, which is just, you're paying $15 for that skin. So if you really like gold and blue, go for it, but otherwise that's a skip. And the Warlock. So the Warlock is a little different because the Warlock is an interdiction ship. At that price of $85, I don't know if it's worth it. So you have to make that determination. For me, the only thing that I do with starters personally is I make sure that those ships are gearing me up to earn the next available ship. If it's not gearing me up for that, then I don't want the starter. And I think that's the way most people should really look at starters, unless you just absolutely love the ship. Your starter is just to get you from point A to point B. It's supposed to get you from, I have this starter and I'm looking for the next one. So anything under $100 is normally going to be used for that purpose. There's some very unique exceptions that I'll talk about. You'll hear me talk about throughout IAE, but for the most part, anything under $100, you should be looking at what's next. Unless, again, you absolutely love that ship and it's like the ship you've been waiting for your whole life or something like that. Other than that, most of the time it's going to be a skip. I think the Avenger Titan is one of the best starters in the entire game, if not the single best. The cutter is a little cheaper, and I think its ability to carry a Steve and I think that might be more useful, but it depends on who you are and what you want. But the cheaper is better generally for starters, so you can't go wrong with the Avenger Titan. All right, let's talk about the Eclipse. So now, the Eclipse is not worth $300. I'll start with that right off the bat, but right now, like I said, you can get it for $275. Still not worth $275. However, when I did my original review of the Eclipse, I was a little bit harsh on it. It actually is, it's not great for what it does because it is extremely expensive, but it's also one of the coolest looking ships in the game, and you're paying for that. You're paying for that cool factor because this thing, what is it? I think it's a B-12 bomber that it looks like. The thing is just cool looking. It is super cool looking, and there's no way that I could tell people what the value of cool looking is. So you have to determine that for yourself. I don't think it's cool looking enough to justify it being $75 more expensive than I think it should be, because I think it should be $225. However, if you use CCUs and upgrades, you should be able to get this for $225 no problem, especially considering there's a $25 upgrade to it right now. So if you collect CCUs just even throughout IAE, I wouldn't be surprised if you can't save $75 plus on this and get it for $225. That's as much as I would pay for it. It has the massive bombs, I think size 9, and yeah, it's only got 3 of them, which is my biggest problem with it. But it may just be because they aren't extremely balanced yet. Once those are balanced, once we get like the final torpedo balancing, I do think this ship will step up, because I think size 9s are going to do a lot more damage than they currently do, just to justify the fact that this only has 3 of them. So that's the thing. I don't know if they'll get slower to balance it. I don't know what that'll be, but the Eclipse is what I would say. It's somewhere between okay and good. It's somewhere in between there. So take with that what you will, but it ain't worth $300. So $225 is the most I'd pay for that. Gladius, it's your all-around dogfighter. Now, this is one of those exceptions when I talk about ships under $100. The Gladius is a great dogfighter to have all the way up until you get to the $200 range, and then there's some that might be a little bit better. But if you don't have 200 plus to spend on a ship, on a dogfighter, to be very clear, a dogfighter, a light fighter. If you don't have money to $200 plus to spend on those, absolutely keep your Gladius until you do. And again, some people prefer this as the light fighter that they're going to keep in their fleet. So this is the all-arounder. When I say all-arounder, it's the all-around dogfighter for people who don't have a preference for speed versus toughness versus maneuverability and all. It's one of the best all-around fighters. $90 is expensive to pay for it, but I do think you can get some CCUs to get to where you need to go for this. So I would say 75 is the better price for it. If you can get it for 75, it's a solid ship. Stay away from the Gladius Valiant, because I don't think anything that comes with it is worth it. But if you really, really want something that says Gladius Valiant on it, go for it. But for $20 extra for a light fighter, it's a no for me. Now, if you are a super fan of the Gladius Valiant, if you're a super fan of the Gladius specifically, then I would say the Gladius Valiant is the better. If you know that you're going to keep a Gladius, you know that's one of your ships that's going to end up in your final fleet no matter what, because you just love it so much, I would get the Gladius Valiant instead of the Gladius, because I do think the Gladius Valiant will be harder to come by. Outside of that, get the base Gladius. The Hammerhead is a unique ship because I don't think it's worth its price currently, but I do think that the devs are aware of the fact that the Hammerhead isn't really pulling its weight. And so because I think the devs are aware of that, I do think it will eventually pull its weight. So I do think 725 is the correct price for it now that the devs are aware. However, I do think I can't really justify this unless other things are true. So let me justify a Hammerhead for you if you are interested in a Hammerhead. Hammerhead is going to be very defensive. It's going to be very heavily armored. It is a fighter destroyer. It is meant to destroy light, medium, heavy fighters. It will, if you have this thing fully crewed, it will destroy all fighters. Now, it is bad against anti-subcap and anti-cap ships. It is bad against both of those. It is bad against anything that can shoot torps. It is bad against anything, well, not anything that can shoot torps, but a lot of ships that can shoot torps. And it's really bad against snub fighters. So just be clear. Now, snub fighters can't do a whole lot of damage to it because it's very defensive, but those are its weaknesses. The reason the Hammerhead doesn't really fill its purpose is because of the Perseus and the Polaris. I can't see me getting a Hammerhead instead of a Perseus, and I can't see me getting a Hammerhead instead of a Polaris. If I needed coverage specifically for that range of fighters, then I get a Hammerhead. But there's no way I could suggest getting a Hammerhead before you get a Perseus. I can't suggest getting a Hammerhead before you get a Polaris. So if you have both of those ships, then you can get a Hammerhead. Unless you just love the Hammerhead. I know a lot of people like the way it looks. It does have the very unique underslung flight thing. So, you know, if you really like that, go for it, of course. But I did a review on the Hammerhead, so go check that out if you really want like deep details. But my suggestion, the Hammerhead should be your final subcap capital ship purchase. It shouldn't be your first or your second. That's the only thing I would say about it. But buyer, it's your business. All right, the Idris P. The Idris P, obviously, if you didn't get one already, the only way to get one now is if you get what I think is the Aegis pack. Let's see how much that is. Aegis complete pack. So if you get it with credits, it's 9,000, and if you get it without credits, it's 8,250. So let's see if this comes with LTI. Yep, it comes with LTI even if you get it with credits, which I think that's the way it's supposed to be. The Aegis complete pack, if you look here, it comes with LTI, right? And you can name your Hammerhead, which is cool, and you can name your Reclaimer. Okay, very cool. But if you look here, it comes with an Idris P. Now, I wish it came with an Idris K, because if you're saying complete pack, it should also have that pack in it. And I don't see that in here. So that, I'm not 100% sure that counts as a complete pack because it doesn't have the K package. I wish it did, but the amount of money you're saving on the ships, I guess you could just go and purchase that. But anyway, unless you need, this is the reason I normally suggest staying away from complete packs. Unless you are an absolute Aegis lover and you were planning on getting all these ships anyway. If you are an Aegis lover and you know that you want all of the Aegis ships, those are the only people that should be buying this. Now, here's my problem with buying this pack, even if you are an Aegis lover. There's going to be new Aegis ships at some point, and they won't be added to your complete pack. So the best time to buy a complete pack is in the future. However, the price might go up. We don't know what'll be included, whether this will ever be sold again. So there are some considerations there. So you have to make that decision. I personally don't think it's worth it. If it came with the Idris P and it came with that K kit, I might say it might be worth it for that Aegis lover. But at this current stage, I would say no. Unless you already have the majority of these ships in your fleet and you know they're staying, there's no reason to get this pack. And I do think that's what most of the packs for IAE are for. They're for the people who already have all of these ships or most of these ships, and they're just looking to get a little bit more of a discount. Or they want something that's included below, right? So if, let's say the Hammerhead name reservation or Reclaimer name reservation, you could only get those in the complete pack, that person might think that that's worth it and get that. But other than that, stay away from the packs. The Idris M is really the one that you want, and you can only get that in the Dominus pack, which I believe is somewhere between 6,000 and 7,500. Or you can get it in the Praetorian pack, which is $15,000. So Idris M is the one to get, in my opinion. If I can't get the Idris M, I don't want an Idris. So unless they sell the Idris M in a cheaper pack at some point, I don't really want the Idris. And that is a me thing. Most people say if you can get an Idris, get an Idris. Me, I only want the M. Otherwise, I'll just try to find the M in the game, which will probably be very difficult to do. Well, not very difficult, but it'll be difficult because you'll either have to buy one from an org who's already completed all the steps, which they'll be selling them for some crazy amount, or you'll have to build one yourself, which will require org gameplay. So anyway, moving on, don't want to spend too much time on it. I do believe the Idris is one of the best ships in the game though. So I have to say that before I move on, just so you know how I feel about the ship. Not necessarily whether I would purchase it or not, but I do think it's one of the best ships in the game. The Javelin might end up being the single best ship in the game, but we don't know enough about it to make that determination. However, it is the biggest ship in the game. So currently, we know the Bingle will be flyable, we know it will be buildable, and we know it will be ownable. So currently, you cannot buy a Bingle. We only know that in the future you will be able to build it and find it. So I'm gonna go with this being the biggest ship for now, but those are my caveats. The Javelin, I think, is going to be great, but you need a metric ton of people to crew it, and obviously it's $3,000, and you can't get any discounts on that unless you get the Aegis Complete Pack. So let me go back to this just to show you what you're saving, right? Okay, so remember, you are getting, yeah, it does. It includes the Javelin. So if you don't, here's the other argument, and I didn't want to say this until we got to the Javelin. Here's the other argument for people who want to buy this pack. If you hate the F5 wars to the point where you are like, I don't want to do that, I don't care how much I want to pay, I just want to skip all that and get my ships. The Javelin is 3,000. The Idris is 1,500, right? So that's 4,500. Mind you, you're paying 8,000, right? If you look through this, right? So we're going to do some quick math here. I don't know how quick it'll be, but we're going to do some math here. So you're at $4,500, right? An Eclipse, $300. All right, we're at 4,800. Now I'm skipping the smaller ships just to see where we end up when we just do the bigger ships. Hammerhead, 725. We'll just say 700 for the sake of math. We can add stuff back later. 700. So now we're at 5,500 just for those ships that I mentioned. The Nautilus, another 700. So we were at 5,500. That takes us to 7,200. Or no, I'm sorry, 6,200. 6,200, stay with me. Reclaimers, 400. All right, so now we're at 6,600. We can do Redeemer. Redeemer's 330. So now we're at 6,500. Retaliator, I believe, is somewhere around 300. So I think we were 65. So let's say 68. And that's 6,800. Let's skip those. We'll skip those. And these are all about 200 each. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Those are all 200. So now you're at like 7,800. And then if we go back and include the Sabres, which are 100 something each, you're saving, it looks like you're saving about maybe $300, give or take. You're saving about $300. You get, this should be, or no, actually, no, you're saving more than that. Because I forgot about all the little stuff, plus the fact that you're getting LTI on all of it. So you're probably saving about $800, okay? $800, but you have to spend $8,000 to get that $800 discount, which is about 10%, right? Not even 10%, it's probably a little bit less than that, like 9%. A 9% discount on all of those ships, plus you're getting the Javelin without doing the F5 wars and the Idris without doing the F5 wars. So how much is that worth to you? Let's say I assign a value of $150 to skip the F5 wars, which may or may not be worth it to you. Let's say $300 because I get to skip 2 F5 wars. So that makes it, I'm saving $1,100, which is a little bit, about 12%. So do you think spending $8,000 is worth 12% discount? This is me trying to make the argument for people who do want to buy the pack. However, even with everything I've said, I still would say don't get these packs unless you are an Aegis lover who wants all of the Aegis ships, and you are 100% on that. If you're even 99%, don't get it. All right, there you go. Done with those. Moving on to one of the underrated ships, if you ask me, which is the Nautilus. I do think a lot of people are underestimating the Nautilus because people are like, well, how good are mines in space when I could just fly around them? If you think that CIG is going to make this ship completely useless after selling it for $725, I think that there's a bridge in New York that I would love to sell you. Other than that, yeah, Nautilus is going to be a good ship, and I think I love the fact that they're not working on it. It's super far in the future because that means the more they figure out how to build ships, which if the Zeus and the Polaris are any signs, they have figured out how to build ships. And what I don't mean to say like they didn't figure it out before, but they figured it out much better. So the longer it takes to build these ships, the better they're going to end up. And I think the Nautilus is going to be incredible. I'm telling you, and I think it's going to be a more niche ship, right? I don't think everybody needs a Nautilus. I don't think everybody wants a Nautilus. But I do think the people who have one are going to be able to do some things that are very unique in the game. So, who is the Nautilus for? I think the Nautilus is for people who know for a fact that mines are going to be a part of their gameplay, or getting rid of mines is going to be a part of their gameplay. I also think it is kind of a stand-in for something like a Perseus or Polaris. Now, it's not going to be as combat effective as those ships, but I do think this is going to be a defense heavy ship because I do think it will need to have some heavy armor plating in order to withstand the mines that it collects in case those blow up. You don't want a ship that can't handle the mines blowing up as it's trying to collect them, right? So as a mine sweeper and layer, I do think it'll be a very defensive ship. I do think it'll be a little harder to get those guns on target, looking at where they are, one in the front, 2 on the sides. I do think it has 1 on the bottom, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I do think it'll be a little hard to get those guns on target. Not completely difficult, but it'll be harder to get them all on the same target, is what I mean. So I do think it could be a stand-in. So if you have this and you have either a Perseus or a Polaris, I think you would be good. However, I would lean towards Polaris owners. Like if you're a Polaris owner, getting a Nautilus might make it to where you don't need a Perseus. But if you get a Nautilus, I wouldn't say, if you have a Perseus and you get a Nautilus, I wouldn't say that you don't need a Polaris. I would just say you could probably last a little while without it. But yeah, if you have a Polaris and a Nautilus, I think you can go without a Perseus. But again, it's a very niche ship. Its main purpose is for mine laying and sweeping. I'm not saying this is a Perseus, replacement, because the Perseus is a different ship. I'm just giving you an example of what I think people should ways that people can fit it into their fleet. But if you are not interested in mine laying, mine sweeping at all, and you don't have a purpose for it, don't get it. The Reclaimer, still $400, and I'm still surprised. This is easily a $650 ship. It is an amazing ship. It's going to make a metric ton of money. It is the capital ship for salvage. It is the biggest one that we're going to get as far as we know. As far as devs have said, this is the biggest one we're going to get, but that is subject to change, but I don't think that would change anywhere near anytime soon. So $400, it's a steal. Everybody should get one. If you're even remotely interested in salvage, pick up a CCU to this. You will not be upset. Trust. Redeemer. This one has had a little bit of a fall from grace. However, I do still think that the Redeemer is worth the price. $330 for a ship that is going to be faster than the Starlancer attack, because the Starlancer attack is the one I think kind of took its shine a little bit. It's going to be faster than the Starlancer attack. Well, it should be. Let me say that. It should be faster than the attack. It should have better maneuverability than the attack. And as long as it's fully crewed, it should still be able to compete with a ship like the TAC. Now, it doesn't have med beds, doesn't have a hangar, and it doesn't have a massive metric ton of storage. It doesn't have the seats. So I'm still gonna say, if you're in the market, I think you should get a TAC. Now, one thing I will say is the Redeemer has better visibility from the cockpit than the TAC. So it depends on what you need. Do you need a smaller, more maneuverable gunship, or do you need a larger, more do-it-all, do-everything gunship? So I think the TAC is the better buy, but there are still going to be people who need the Redeemer, so there you have it. I wouldn't pay $330 for it, though, just to be clear. The Redeemer should be bought at no more than $275. That's what it's worth currently. Yeah, and so that's enough for that. The Retaliator. Oh, okay. My math was wrong a little bit earlier. I thought this was more expensive, but it is technically more expensive because you do have to purchase the add-ons, which are the modules for it. This is a modular ship, so I think with just like this is the bomber variant, I think if you get both of the bombs, the bomber modules, I think it ends up being like $275 or something like that. So to be very clear, this is like a $300 ship. So what do I think about it? I think it did get a rework. It was a much necessary rework. The Retaliator is interesting because I think that the only variant that's worth it is the actual bomber variant. And I do think the bomber variant is worth it because it has those, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's size 10 bombs. It's either size 9 or size 10 bombs. Either way, it's worth it. Not bombs, torpedoes. And I think in order for it to be worth it, you need that full range of torpedoes. So if you don't have that full range of torpedoes, I don't know if the living module is worth it. I don't know if the cargo module is worth it. So those things are a little bit iffy to me. I think the bomber variant is the one to get here. But if the Retaliator is your main ship, then I could see why people would get that. To me, it's the middle step. You have the Eclipse at the bottom as far as like torpedo bombers. There's other torpedo bombers, but I'm saying if you're talking very large torpedoes, you got the Eclipse, and then you got the Retaliator somewhere in the middle as far as value, and then you got the Polaris at the top. So that's the way I would see it. What level of torpedo thing do you need? And you should go based on that. But the Eclipse has the least value, even though it's a little bit more expensive than the Retaliator. But that's part of where its value drops, is because the Retaliator is so cheap. So there you have it. The Sabre, skip. It's a skip to me. It needs a little bit more love before I think it'll be worth the price. However, if you can get it at $125, I think it's worth $125, but I just think there's better options at $125, so that's why I would say it's a skip. The Sabre Comet, skip, because it's basically the same thing as this one, and the loadout doesn't particularly make sense to me, and you're paying $10 extra for it. So if I think this is worth $125, I can't say this is worth $135. So yeah, that's a skip for me. The Sabre Firebird. Now, this one I do think is worth the price, and it's only worth the price if you need the type of gameplay it offers. If you love missiles, which a lot of people don't, so I understand a lot of people, this is a skip. So you can just keep skipping past this part if you don't like missiles. However, I do think missiles will be really great once the game is balanced for missiles. So right now, the missiles on it, I do think are a little underpowered. However, you can shoot, what is it? I think it's either 4 or 6 of them at the same time. I think it's 6 of them at the same time. Whatever. You can shoot a range of missiles with this thing at the same time, which is huge because most missile launchers, you can only shoot one at a time. So that's one of the things that's great about it. You can shoot multiple missiles at a time. The best thing about it, though, is the fact that it is stealth. It doesn't say, you notice it says combat, medium fighter, a force to be reckoned with, Sabre Firebird. It doesn't say stealth on there, but it is a stealth ship. It comes with all stealth parts, and it has an extremely low rate, like signature, like electromagnetic, all of that. Its cross-section is a little bit higher, but all the signatures, you have to be very close to detect this thing, which means you can sneak up and shoot multiple rockets at, or not rockets, missiles. You can shoot, sneak up on somebody, get just right outside of their radar range and shoot multiple missiles at them, and then dive bomb and shoot them with those, I believe, size 3s. Yeah, and that is really cool. It's for stealth, people who like to sneak up on their opponents, get some, you know, get some missiles in to weaken them up, and then boom, finish them off with the size 3s. That is a level of gameplay that I am super interested in. If you're not interested in anything stealth, this is not going to be for you. If you're not interested in missiles, this is not going to be for you. The Peregrine. All right, I got to talk about it. It's not worth $185. I'll tell you that right off the bat. If you love racing, it is an extremely fast ship. So I can't knock it on its ability to race. It is a great racer. I don't think it's worth $185. I think at $185, I need a secondary use case for it. I needed to have greater radar. I needed to have some amazing amount of armor. I needed to have something else than the ability to race at $185. Now, if the ship was $140, I might be able to say that. So if you pay $140 or less for this, I could see it being a good racer for you. But at $185, I just don't think it's worth it. So make sure if you get this, you are getting a decent discount of at least $45 to $50. And that's all I'll say about it. I don't want to hamper on it. The Harbinger, this to me is the best of the Vanguards, except it's way overpriced, right? Now, the Harbinger is the other bomber that's kind of in there, along with the Gladiator. There are other bombers that are available. However, the Harbinger is, to me, the best of the Vanguards, and because you can fit 2 people in there, or because it opens up the multi-game, the multi-role gameplay, I do think it's a good ship. I don't think it's currently balanced to where it should be. I do think it needs a little bit more maneuverability because of those nose guns, and I do think its flight profile can be improved overall. That being said, I do think this ship will end up being really good. I just think it'll end up being kind of the standard. Like, it'll be the middle of the road for everything. It'll have it'll be the, like I mentioned with the Gladius earlier, how this is the all-around. I think this will be the all-around heavy fighter. There'll be heavy fighters that are maybe tougher, or maybe they have better weapons, but they're slower or something like that. Or there'll be ones that are slightly below it, that aren't as tough or aren't as weapon heavy, but they're way faster and they're way more maneuverable. So that's where I think the Vanguard Harbinger is going to end up sitting. The hoplite, there are better, pretty much everything this ship does, there is a ship that does it better, whether it's drop ship, combat, heavy fighting, whatever it is, there's a ship you can find that's better. The hoplite is an absolute no for me. So if you want, you can go check out my review, but that's all the time the hoplite gets. The Sentinel, now, it's overpriced still, but I do think this is a very unique ship because it comes with this kind of e-warfare suite thing. So I do think people who want to be part of the fight but are the commander of the fight, I think they should have one of these. Now, I think the commander should not be pilot and should not be gunner. I think the commander should be standing on this ship while with a gunner and a pilot separate, and they should be leading the fight from this ship, because I do think this is going to be one of the very few ships where you can be in the fight and be the commander. So I would expect that kind of use case for it. However, it is a good ship even outside of that because of its e-warfare suite. I just think it's a little overpriced for what it is. So get it for $250 or below, and I think you're all right. The Warden. So this one is kind of the same story. It's somewhere between the Hoplite and the Harbinger. I just don't see why I would get, if I'm spending $260 already, I might as well go the extra $30 and get the Harbinger, which is a better ship in general, or get the Sentinel and just get like a different style of ship. I just don't think the Warden is worth what it's saying here. And that's kind of my thing about it. I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like the Warden it's in a weird place. Like at that price point, you can get better ships slightly above it or slightly below it. And that's where I kind of think it sits. Unless you specifically like the Vanguard Warden, and unless you have like 2 people you know really both love that ship, I probably would skip it. The Vulcan. This is one of my favorite ships in the game, especially at the $200 price point, because this is going to be my daily driver. That should tell you how much I love this ship. The Vulcan is going to camp. You can already see that it has the drones. It has repair drones. I don't know if the repair drones will be able to refuel. I did a review on it, so go check that out. But and I'm sure I said it somewhere in there. But I don't know what all those drones will be able to do. I think they're mostly going to be repair, but I wouldn't be surprised if they can also do refueling. I think rearming, maybe they do all 3, but that would be really cool if it can do all 3. But I think this will be one of the most useful ships to just fly around. There will always be people who need repair. If there's not people who need repair, there will always be people who need to be refueled. And if there's people who don't need to be refueled, there will be somebody who needs to be rearmed. I think by far this ship, driving this around or flying this around, you're going to run into more instances to use this ship than any other ship except a combat ship, because combat is always going to be around. I think combat's going to be the #1 most common thing. But yeah, I think this is going to be one of the most useful ships in the game. That's why it's my daily driver. That's why I'm buying one and not waiting to get one in game and see what rep walls it's behind. So that's my opinion on it. But if you're not interested in repair, refueling, and rearming at all, it's not for you. It only has like 12 SEU, so it's not going to have anything really outside of those 3 things to do. And that 12 SEU is really going to be needed to actually carry the fuel, carry the armament, and carry the repair stuff. So you're really not going to be able to do anything except those 3 things with it, but it can do 3 things, which is really cool. And yeah, I just don't know what the speeds and everything are going to be around it, but I don't particularly care because yeah, I think it's one of the coolest ships in the game. And that is it. That is all of the ships. We can go down here and look a little bit. I already talked about these complete packs. I don't think there's anything else there. Yeah, so that's it. Your war bond. Yeah, that's it for Aegis Day. I will let's do one other thing, because let's see let's go to the event schedule. Tomorrow is Mirai and Misk. So there will be hull limited ships tomorrow. Okay, so there will be hull limited ships from Mirai and Misk tomorrow, which means you do want to find out what time those ships are coming out. Let me tell you which ships those will be. The hull E is quantity limited. So if you're looking for a hull E, that one is quantity limited, which means they're gonna sell out. That's the only one I think that's gonna be out tomorrow. And then if you keep looking at this, until we get to, yep, no quantity limited for Mirai or Misk, except for the hull E. No quantity limited for Mirai or Misk except the hull E. Gattac, Apoa, Banu, and Hesperia, they have their own day, like all the alien manufacturers. RSI, there's going to be a ton of people trying to get hull limited ships, so just beware, be ready for that. Argo, Consolidated Outland, Grey Cat, and Kruger, tons of people are going to be trying to get the Pioneer that day. So again, another one to look out for. Drake, you know the deal with this one. Krakens are going to be selling like hotcakes, so make sure you're ready for that. Origin, the 890 jump's going to be selling like crazy. Well, I don't know if it'll sell like crazy because it doesn't have LTI anymore, so we'll see. But my guess is it still will sell like crazy. The Anvil, we know whatever. We know the Anvil will have one as well. One thing that's happening, and there's some like sneak peeks about this. The Anvil Paladin is coming, and we have no idea what that is, but it very well may be hull limited. I have no idea, but that is coming, and it's most likely going to come on November 30th. That would explain why Anvil is last, because if you're gonna reveal one of the biggest ships like that, people have been waiting for an Anvil capital for a long time, and it does look like this will either be a sub cap or capital. And this might be one of the biggest ship reveals that they've ever done. So hold on to your seats, folks. Be ready at 11 a.m. on Anvil Day. And then they're doing the best in show, which they may bring some of those back, those quantity limiteds. Grand finale, they might bring some back. I don't know, but I wouldn't expect. I think the sale would end on the, I think it ends on the 5th, but early morning on the 5th. But try to get everything done before the 4th. Don't depend on that. Yeah, so that's my thing. I think it's best, you know, log on 7:30 a.m. You know, I think 8 a.m. is like the earliest that they do things, but log on 8 a.m. This is all Eastern Standard Time, so convert it to your time. Log on at 8 a.m. before 8 a.m. Wait till 8 a.m. hits, see if those ships are available. Log on at 11 a.m. Wait till log on at 10:30. Wait till 11 a.m. See if those ships hit, because as far as I know, everything is available but at 11 a.m. But I don't want to steer you wrong, so just make sure you go at 8 a.m. If people can provide some actual, you know, physical proof that it's 11 a.m., drop that in the comments. So make sure you check the comments. But yeah, that's all I got for Aegis Day. So a great day, especially if you ended up with an Idris or a Javelin. I know some people out there are having some absolute fun with that. And some people are going to be like, yeah, I finally got one. So yeah, that's always a cool thing to have. But yeah, I'll see you tomorrow for Mirai and Mixed Day. Shout out to the members, and thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for liking. Do all those things that I said at the beginning of the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.